Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Do you know when your coffee was born? What's up everybody, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Today we're doing kind of a fun review with coffee. Specifically, we're going to compare two coffees from a local roaster, not here in Indianapolis, but elsewhere in the country. I'm hoping to do more videos like this where I explore regional roasters essentially. And this particular roaster is Press Coffee. Now, Press Coffee actually has a really robust website. They have several locations throughout Arizona. The particular one I visited was in Scottsdale, but their main roastery is in Phoenix. And they do a lot of single origin coffees. And they have a great website. I highly recommend you check out the website of Press Coffee because you can get those coffees shipped to you. So if you want to try either of the coffees we're making today, you can give those a shot. And they have great information about the specifics, where the coffee was grown, what kinds of processes were used, elevation, all kinds of information. As I talked about in my champagne review, there is a terroir coffee as well. You can taste the area it's made, the process that's being used. There's a lot of fun elements you can explore if you really want to nerd out with coffee like I do. But today we're not going to dig into those levels of detail. I have another video with Press Coffee, so please like this video and subscribe to get the chance to see that other one where I go into more detail about the specific beans. But today we are focusing on the time away from the roastery, how old your coffee is. And people often don't realize, especially when they're drinking Folgers or even high quality pre-ground coffee, the importance of time in your coffee beans. Now, what I mean by that is, how long ago was the coffee roasted? How long ago was the coffee ground? This makes a huge difference. Today we're focusing on the roasting. And part of that's because I happen to have two coffees from Press. One of them was roasted about 6 weeks ago. And the other one was roasted about a week and a half ago. Now, I've seen different numbers from different people, but in my personal experience, after about 6 or 8 weeks away from roasting, you really lose components of the flavor in a coffee bean, especially with these small local roasteries where they put so much effort and time into picking high quality beans, single origin coffees from very specific locations, or their own custom blends. They are really attuned to the nuances and the flavors. A lot of that gets lost once you get further and further away from roasting. Now, before I catch any flack for this, I will come out right and say, yes, I know I'm using two different beans. They're actually using two different processes. The Sumatra is a single origin that I believe is washed, and the Ethiopian is a single origin that uses the natural process. The important thing for me on this process is I noticed both of these pours have tasting notes of chocolate and black cherry. They have 3 tasting notes on the bottom of all of the Press Coffee bags. And these both have chocolate and black cherry, so they should be relatively similar even though they're from different places and they have different processes. And sometimes that can happen, and that can actually be a fun element to see, oh, this location with this process gives you the same flavor as this other location with a different process. That's part of the exploration. That just can be fun. You actually see some of that in whiskey as well. Some of the fruitier notes that I end up finding on Speyside scotches are often ones that remind me of bourbon. Different process, different location, similar flavors. One of the things I really like that Press Coffee does is they put these little indicators on the bottom of the bag so you can see exactly when it was roasted. That's really valuable because it lets you find out how far before you're buying them these beans were roasted. So if you don't care as much about something like that, you may look for an older date and you may be able to get a discount on them. These beans were differently priced. All 3 of the bags I bought had very different price points. And I think part of that is because of how quickly they are moving off the shelves, how hard they are to get your hands on. So that might be something to consider. I don't know if Press Coffee intentionally prices things that way, but can't hurt to ask the question. Okay, but enough backstory. Let's start tasting these coffees. This is sitting at around 5 weeks, so I think there's going to be a pretty significant loss in profile flavor as compared to the Sumatra. Now, this one is roasted on 12/20, so we're almost exactly 2 weeks out. And a lot of people say 2 weeks is sort of the early end of roasting quality. You get like a 2 to 6 week band is a number I hear a lot. I'm going to butcher these names, so bear with me. The Ethiopian is Berhatu Gibioka? Something like that. I usually find someone on the internet to say it so that I am not making it up on the spot, but here we are. The flavors they note are mixed berries, black cherry, and semi-sweet chocolate. So let's go ahead and give it a taste and see if we find the same things. I don't really get any of the black cherry sweetness. The chocolate is pretty prominent. I definitely get sort of semi-sweet morsels, but black cherry is really hard for me to find, at least on that first sip. The mixed berries as well, honestly, are hard to find. You know, the natural process for me tends to leave some more of that earthiness, but this, you know, the flavor notes, they say it's going to be sweet and berry forward, which is what I expect from Ethiopian coffee. That's very classic Ethiopian flavors. But I'm not getting much of those. And maybe it's because it's been 6 weeks plus since it was roasted. We have one that was roasted 2 weeks ago and one that was roasted 5 weeks ago. Why I can't tell time, I don't have an excuse. When I really make a point of slurping the coffee, I get some more of that mixed berry quality, but it's very short-lived. It sits there for just a split second and then disappears. In comes that chocolatey note. It's a very balanced coffee. It is a little bit muted, which I stand by the idea that that's from being roasted over 5 weeks ago. It's also slightly drying, which I don't love from a coffee. I like a juicier coffee. I do get a little bit of like a malted barley vibe, as well as a sort of subtle, what would I call that? Maybe a hazelnut note? Yeah, the reality is this clearly feels like a coffee that was meant to be sweet, juicy, berry forward, and it's just lost some luster. That's not something I would typically expect from a Sumatran coffee, but the notes on the Sumatran that I'm going to try next are chocolate, black cherry, and sweet tobacco. So the sweet tobacco and the black cherry means I'm expecting a sweeter coffee. I don't know if it's going to be particularly juicy, but it certainly should be more prominent, more obvious flavors. So let's give that one a try. Oh, that is so much more flavorful. It's just a punch in the face compared to a gentle slap. It's so different. And you know, I brewed these the exact same amount of water, same weight of coffee, same grinder, same grind level, same timing. I use a little timer to make sure my timing's right. These couldn't have been brewed more similarly. And yet, they are wildly different in terms of how aggressive the flavors are. Now, that's important. These are different flavors. They're different coffees. I acknowledge that. However, the flavors are so much more present, so much more front of the palate, so much easier to recognize. I have to really dig on this Ethiopian coffee to pull out the flavors. And I stand by the fact that that is because it's more than 5 weeks old in terms of roasting. Why else do I stand by that? Because I had been drinking this coffee before. I started drinking the Ethiopian coffee when it had been roasted for 3 weeks. So I remember that it had much more of a sweetness, much more of a berry forward note that has since dissipated in a very short amount of time. When you do something like that and you run this kind of experiment, you have to store the beans carefully. They need to be in the dark. They need to be in an airtight space. That way you don't have degradation that you attribute to them being out in the open air as opposed to them being further away from the roasting. So I took those precautions, but it's just no comparison. I mean, the Sumatra's been open for about a week. Tons of earthiness. This one, for me, the tobacco really stands out. It has got an almost leafy quality. If you've ever smoked like a mid-body, maybe even a light-body cigar with that slight drying, that Connecticut leaf, that is what I've got going on here. It is really earthy, light, prominent, sweet. It's almost got like a pipe tobacco vibe from the sweetness. Wow. Chocolate on the Sumatra is not sweet. It's not semi-sweet. It is raw cocoa. And that pairs actually really well with the sweet tobacco. You get sweet tobacco, you get a little bit of almost bitter chocolate note, which, you know, in coffee, people expect bitterness because they're not drinking good coffee. This is a very different kind of bitterness. And the black cherry is showing up on the end there. I mean, the fruit notes on the Ethiopian, I expect them to be front of the palate. But for me, the fruit notes on the Sumatra are back of the palate. Going back to the Ethiopian after that Sumatra, I do get more of the berry notes. They become more prominent. But again, it is so subtle and subdued. It's so much quieter. The flavors, the difference is very profound. I would highly recommend that you at home get whatever your favorite coffee is, or get a local roasted, high quality coffee that was recently roasted. Taste it right away. Then taste it maybe once a week, every week, and you will write down your notes. Write down the tasting notes. Get yourself a coffee flavor wheel. This one is from Counterculture Coffee. There are others out there on the internet. They're not that hard to find. Google coffee flavor wheel. You'll find it. That's what I did. That's the professional way, is Google. Set yourself up with a fun experiment. You will enjoy it if you enjoy coffee. Give it a shot. See what the differences are, because I bet you'll be surprised how quickly the flavors degrade in a coffee bean that was roasted very recently compared to one that was roasted several weeks or months ago. This has been The Drink Pro. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you want more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to join the Patreon. There's tons of cool benefits up there. Exclusive video content, lots of opportunities to try things alongside me in video calls, opportunities to win free bottles, all kinds of cool stuff. And don't forget exclusive live streams and merch. Y'all keep drinking like professionals. I know I will. Cheers.